future delivery models on how to shape the next generation of government delivery. And we've been talking about, for the last couple of days or the last day and a half, how as a public sector we're going to meet the moment and how AI and technology is going to help support us do this. So please welcome Marco Palermo. He's the Director of Human Services and Integration and Transformation, Social Development, Finance and Administration. That's a long title. So I mean, you're very, very important, from the City of Toronto. Thank you for being with us today, and welcome, Marco, to the stage.
Thank you. Not yet. Oh, there we go.
There
we go. Loud and clear now. Thank you. Obviously an exciting topic, and I'm sure one that you are all challenged with in your day-to-days. Before I really get started, I do have a question. Can I get a show of hands? How many are in the public sector right now trying to do customer experience work? Okay. Are there any in the private sector that are trying to deliver on customer experience? Not here. And what about, well, there were only a few hands, so can I assume the rest are the vendors? Isn't that right? Our vendor partners? Okay. Thank you very much for being here. You may be disappointed in my approach. But with that said, let's go forward anyway. You know, when I thought about this topic, I thought to myself, what does it take, and why does it take so long for government to move forward, right, and modernize? And I've done several of them, and we'll get into that in a second. But in talking with a lot of my peers, colleagues, friends in the private sector, this isn't a problem just public sector is facing. And the reason that is because it is extremely difficult to keep up with technology trends. And on top of that, it's extremely expensive. So even in the private sector, to try and keep up with the current situation, which only just got worse, for revenue generation and so forth, trying to invest those dollars is difficult all around. So don't feel bad about the fact that it is taking time, but there are steps, and that's what I want to talk about today with you guys. Now, the problem is, for all of us, is the number one question we're all being asked: what are you doing with AI to move things faster? That's the question. And all of us, certainly in the public sector, know the risks that come with AI. The things that we're constantly stirring about. And we look at our peers, we've seen a number of them, they're in the media, where they tried to do that. They tried to accelerate on that question that was being asked. And unfortunately, there were some unfortunate events, right? Misinformation getting out, et cetera, and so forth. And of course, that only makes things harder for us in the public sector. But here's the thing. Moving forward is not about chasing the latest trend. It's about digitizing. It's about making a change, right? So a little bit about me. My name is Marco Palermo. I have spent the last 20 years, over 20 years with the city. The past 20 of them have been in technology services. In fact, my previous role, or my prior role, was as the Deputy Chief Technology Officer for the City of Toronto. I've recently, and I've been fortunate, to take on the secondment role that I'm currently on in Human Services and Integration. And it was one of those things for me to say, man, I've been part of the piece of the puzzle for so long. Can I use the skill set I have to transform a business end to end, right? Because I see so many of the different things that are missing when we try to engage in those conversations with our clients. So why do we need transformation? I think, look, this is very simple, right? And the quote there is from our customer experience group, and it's to improve the lives of our residents, business, and visitors by providing simple, reliable, and connected services that anticipate changing customer needs. Okay? Now here's the thing. Whenever we're asked to be innovative, why is it we always go to, first thing is what's the latest technology trend, and let's put a deck together about this lavish goal that is so hard to achieve. We do it to ourselves. I've done it, right? And when you think about what this statement says, and you think about all of your residents, they just want change. I think it was Denzel Washington, I forget if it was a movie or not, progress over perfection. So when I think about this, I think, okay, so now we build these lavish presentations on we're going to include AI over here, we're going to do Internet of Things over here, it's going to be amazing, and then to try and incorporate it into a complex business is impossible. It takes us years, millions of dollars we don't have, resources we don't have. This journey, or what I'm going to go through today, is just to talk a little bit to you about how we're taking this on within human services integration. So I know I'm giving a lot of prelude here, but it will get into the story and how we're tackling it. I do want to share, though, an experience that I had in the pandemic, okay, as in my former role. So during the pandemic, as many of you know, and I'm sure it's still the case, our business licensing group only operated manual. It was only an in-person process. And of course, for those who are not in the great city of Toronto, if you haven't heard the news, our traffic is amazing. Super fast. Here's why I tell you that, is because the way you could do your business license is over in East York. So if you're in Etobicoke, you have to drive all the way from Etobicoke to East York, because that was the only office that offered it at the time, prior to the pandemic. And then you would go to the office and you'd say, hey, I want to set up a business, and they'd say, you didn't bring the right documents, go home and get them, come back. Perfect customer experience, right? Perfect. And that wasn't to the fault of our business clients, right? MLS, not at all. That's what they had to stand up. They do it in short time with very little money. Now, go into the pandemic, and I'm coming to a reason of this story. In the pandemic, of course, everything shut down. But of course, we also want to keep the economy going. And during the pandemic, more than ever, people were starting to figure out their side hustles, so they needed a business license, right? But you have to do that, and you have to turn around in no time. So these lavish goals of we're going to do a big, great digital solution that's going to integrate to our back-end office that already exists and so on, and we need it in 4 weeks. Yeah, okay. Let's be honest, right? But what we did in technology services is this, hold on. Why are you going for perfect? Let's go halfway. And the halfway was simple. Digitize the process. Tell me what information you take right now at the office. Why do people have to come in? Challenge the why they have to come in. So, for example, it was identity and so on, right? You have to give your driver's license, and we don't want to keep that on file and so on. And these policies, by the way, and of course you work with your privacy folks, are from 30 years ago. We're lost 30 years ago. So, what do? We said, well, hold on, let's challenge all of that. Within 6 weeks, I kid you not, within 6 weeks, we built a simple digital form that provided all of the requirements to be able to upload, okay? And it integrated to the back office system. It was clunky. It wasn't the perfect integration. It wasn't real time, et cetera, and so forth. But it went from having to drive from Etobicoke to East York to sitting in your pajamas at 2 a.m. to submit your business application, okay? And I tell you this story because, as you will see through what I'm going to talk about today, is that you don't need the best of the best. You need to think about what is the next step in your journey, and how can I be ready for that? So, human services integration. I realize that I'm running on here. I'm checking the clock. I'm going to speed it up a little bit, but I do want to say that while I tell you, you don't need the Ferrari, we don't need those big, lavish ideas or innovations where we're going to incorporate AI and all these other things, you need a North Star. That's for sure. And your teams need a North Star. Everybody's familiar with what a North Star is, a vision, essentially. It's a different way of saying a vision. And that North Star, I do have one for our team, but first let me give you a little bit of background. Human Services Integration was formed in 2019. The general idea of it was, in the city of Toronto, we have 45 different, I think we're actually at 47 different divisions right now. Okay, and as you can see from the different areas here, all of those 9 different subsidies that we offer at the city are across 9 different divisions, which means 9 different phone numbers, which means 9 different processes, which means a customer pulling their hair out. But on top of that, our customers are the most vulnerable in the city. They're the ones who need the subsidy. They're the ones who are not tech savvy. They're the ones who we are trying our very best to lift out of poverty, right? Or to support in some way. So now you put them down those silo tracks. And if they need two things, they had to go to two different phone lines and repeat over and over the same information and tell their story over and over. And I have to tell you, having been in this role now for 6 months, I can't believe we ask our customers to tell those stories over and over, right? So why I tell you this, though, is because I'm going to show you where we're going. When this was formed in 2019, that goal was great. The idea was, hey, instead of going to 9 different locations, come to 1. It's going to be 1 phone number. And at least at that 1 phone number, we're going to talk to you about the eligibility process, right? And we'll determine if you're eligible for any particular subsidy, and we'll do it in one house. Here's the problem. All they did was scrape off the top layer of all the processes and put it in one house. And now I come into this role and I go to our caseworkers and go, you guys are absolutely brilliant that you're still here. Because you went from all these individuals who had to learn 1 line of business to having knowing 9 across 7 different legacy systems, which, by the way, almost outdate me, okay? So they're quite old, they're quite clunky, they're not like what we're used to now where there's that wizard-like format. And so our caseworkers are true angels that are steadfast in trying to deliver this. The problem is again, this doesn't work. We didn't get all of we got some efficiencies, and you get some customer service, but certainly the efficiencies that should be had aren't there. And what we did in the background, and this is an important note, is behind the scenes, to make sure that our caseworkers were empowered and informed, we created a knowledge base. Everybody's familiar with knowledge bases. We have a CRM. Great, so we put a Band-Aid on a broken solution. And in addition to that, we went from 7 to now 8 solutions, because why not? Right? So you put that CRM underneath to say, hey, we're centralizing general information, but then, by the way, for every interaction, of which 80% of our calls are forward to an application process, every interaction, they were touching at least 2 systems, meaning they would go into CRM, they would do an update, then they would have to bounce over to another system, try to remember how to do it, and do the update in that legacy system, right? And potentially more, by the way. Okay, why I tell you that? This is where our vision is. This is where we start to talk about the future delivery model. And it's not hard, but it means work on our part, right? We're looking to bring all of those into one universal benefit form. We haven't finalized the name, but we're calling it universal benefit form. The North Star for us, for our team, who are brilliant, they're all on board. And I'm going to say a bad word, and I apologize, bad word especially now. But we're trying to make the Amazon of government. And I say that because there's a relation. I understand the bad word given everything going on. But the idea on this is simple. What happens is, and again, remembering how complex certainly our websites are, I'm sure many of yours, you have so much information we're trying to get out to the public that it's hard to even know what services you're eligible for or what we offer. When you go to Amazon and you pick a product, what does it do? Anybody? No? It makes recommendations. At the bottom of that page, it says, hey, did you know the people that bought a plunger also bought this toilet scrubber and blah, 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 right? And it uses data for that. That's the North Star. We want to be able to say, hey, we know you just applied for a welcome policy. Did you know that you're eligible for Fair Pass? Right? Did you know that you could do this? Do you want to? And of course, and I heard it in the pre-session prior to this at the table groups, privacy. Everybody's ears should be like, oh, I don't think you can do that because you can't share the data over here, over there. Get it. But you'd be funny when you start peeling back the onion and start asking the right questions, how you can actually make it all work. And we are doing that. So that's the North Star for public facing. We have a couple that are digital forms that we digitize, which is great. What that does is, of course, as you could imagine from a customer experience, apply at any time. It's not through the hours of 8:30 and 4:30 when we have call center. So there's an enhancement right there. But the idea, though, is that the other problem with the web forms we have right now for our welcome policy and fair pass, you're repeating and entering the same information for each application. How frustrating is that, right? The second part is the customer experience isn't just about public facing. It's about our employees, our staff, our team members. And as I mentioned to you, and I can tell you, having been in this role now 6 months, having multiple meetings with our caseworkers, they're stressed. To have to remember all of those different lines of business and, oh, am I going to screw up? And if I screw up, it means the person who needs it most might not get it. That's a lot to bear on somebody's shoulders, right? And so what we're going to do in the back end as well, and this is where we tie in and leverage the integration capabilities that are widely available now, we're going to tie in our CRM to actually properly integrate with each of these and follow the same wizard-like format that we're going to walk through in a second here, okay? So let's talk about this. How do you achieve it? Guess what? It's not technology right away. And I know, and again, our vendor partners, please forgive me for this, they're going to tell you they'll solve everything, no problem, come in, just get us, we'll solve it. They're not going to be able to solve it if you're not ready, right? And that's actually in fairness to the vendors, because I do believe they have multiple solutions that can solve these problems. But if we've not put in the work to really review what has to be done, to be able to leverage these technologies, you're not going to get very far. You're going to waste a lot of money, and it's going to take a long, long time. And then that first project you get, guess what? It's going to be underwhelming, because it's going to realize all the gaps you missed because you didn't think it out to begin with. This was the benefit for me. This is where I said to myself, hey, I want to see if I can do a leadership in a business line. See if I can take my lessons learned from working with all the clients who've come to us and say, I need this fast, but I'm not ready. And see if I can change that model. So this is what this means. When you're going through any transformational change, it's important to break down the different components of everything you're doing. Here, what we have is we have AB, which is our notice of collection and terms of use. So again, it came up earlier, the conversation about privacy and how that doesn't allow us to leverage the latest and greatest of tech. Sure, and that is very true. However, sit down and think it through. So in this case, what always ends up happening is somebody is coming to us for a reason. It could be that I want Fair Pass. They don't know everything. Remember, the whole thing here is that they don't know everything that they're eligible for. They're coming for one thing. I want Fair Pass. And so, of course, our first instinct is to say, no problem, and that's where A and B tie in. Hey, we're going to ask you for a bunch of information, and you've come to us for this particular stream, and we're going to collect that information to be able to run it through our system. Of course, terms of use are just standard. But then C is the critical part. C is that consent. Hey, yeah, go ahead, run it through. Because we disclose, we're going to run it through and we're going to see what other things you're eligible for. Meaning, we may share it across different programs, not just what you asked for. Right? And oftentimes, people didn't realize that's possible, and they'll quickly go through the consent for that. Right? Then what that allows us to do is leverage and integrate our front end with a back-end technology, in this case our CRM, where all our business rules are, to run through the information that they've entered. Information simple. It could be certainly their life circumstances, their income, their family structure, etc. Right? Things that we need at the base level. And that is what we call form tombstone information. That for us is different than, I guess, standard tombstone information, which is just first name, last name, email address, sometimes address, etc. We then go on to say, tell me about your household, tell me about your household income, right? Because with that information, guess what? We can make a powerful impact on on the service you're going to receive. So it comes back and it'll say, hey, we know you just wanted Fair Pass, and this is D, but we actually see that you may be eligible for all these other things. Would you like to continue? And that's where they're going to checkbox. Yes, actually I do. I want to see if I can get welcome policy and so on. Right? This is that whole, again, that idea of come for one, but we're going to recommend others, or we're going to provide you guidance on others. Now, understand, while this is nice and colorful and very clean, the work behind the scenes is immense. What the team and I have done is we've looked at every program, every process, what information is needed, and we created a map. That then allowed us to compartmentalize each of these different components that we would need in the public-facing solution. And that's what I'm saying and imploring you to do, is do that. And sometimes maybe it's just one stream, but what you'll end up doing and what we did and end up finding out is, one, we were collecting information that we don't even use anymore, right? So that already we sold that to our privacy officers who said, oh, great, so you're going to stop collecting? Yeah, we are, but we need you to allow us to do this, right? But this is where F and G come in, is note that we have it up here again. Because what we initially did on the first notice of collection was we said, we're going to collect for the program that you came for. But in working with our privacy folks, they said, no, you can do this. But if they do select the additional forms, then just have the notice of collection at the top. Because what we're doing is, after that tombstone information, certainly for each other application, right, you're going to have to submit additional information, right, for the specific programs, right? Welcome policy, for example, for a Fair Pass, you may not have to put your whole family size, right? You can just do it for yourself individually. But when you do welcome policy, which is our recreational benefit, okay, now we want the details of your family. We need to know what your kids and so on, so that we can offer the benefit. And so then we'll collect further information. The idea behind this is, don't make people repeat the information. Reduce that redundancy, right? Give that customer experience. This, by the way, is also used for the back-end solution that we're building, okay? Here's a little bit of what the flow would look like. We start with the consent. Right, so are you good that we go ahead? Of course, we've had A and B in there. We start with the consent, that yes, we're good for you to go ahead and use our information to collect all, right? We go in, they'll select the programs they want to select, and then we'll issue A and B, so that's where the first notice of collection comes in and the terms of use. They'll go down, they'll enter in their tombstone information, 1, 2, 3, right, that we further need, right? And then going into D, where there's other potential eligibilities, okay? And E. Now, if you look, we have F and G where we're notifying of the additional notice of collections and the additional terms of use, right, for that particular stream. At any point, and along the bottom, and you'll see this along the bottom here, this is where we continually add, do you want to add another program? So we leave that on the page as they're going through the wizard so that they don't have to click back if they realize, holy jump, and I've just spent 15 minutes, yeah, I should have clicked on welcome policy, I should have added the other benefits. We are keeping that consistent on that digital page, right? So that they, like Amazon, you can quickly add that product, where you can quickly add that benefit. And what ends up happening is at the end of the process, it will then add the next web form that you just have to, oh, okay, if you want to add it, no problem, we just need these other pieces of information. And of course, F and G are on repeat, right, for that particular stream. Okay. Here's a bit about the technology that enables this, and I realize I'm running a little bit of time here, so I'm going to try to go over this a little bit, but this talks a little bit more now, is once you have all that structure in place, once you have and really have thought through your business processes, right? You can now start looking at the layers that are required for implementing this solution. And in this scenario, and as many of you know, especially those in the public sector, and man, the banks, we still have old COBOL programs at the city. I don't know about any of you. But you have your business and third-party systems. A lot of these are legacy systems. We have them. They're not going away, by the way, because we are still focused right now where we may want to get to a universal caseworker that does end-to-end. Right now, we are still focused on eligibility in our area. But long-term, we would love to go to a universal caseworker. So with that said, we have to have a way for our system to integrate to those legacy systems. That's that bottom layer there, right? And now, with new technologies and the ability to integrate a lot quicker, even if it's not through APIs, so those are application programming interfaces, basically the middle piece that allows two systems to talk to each other. There's so many different ways now to integrate with other systems that it makes it possible with the digital platform area, where you'll have things like your CRM, whether it's Salesforce or HubSpot or otherwise, or it's an in-house grown thing. It allows that to integrate to those legacy systems and push the appropriate data back to those legacy systems. From there, it's about channel access. That's your presentation layer, right? So that top place, which is resident's choice, that's ability, that just shows the flavor of we want to meet people where they want to meet us, right? I think is the common phrase. The idea that you can have it on a mobile device, you can have it on, we have a solution for booking appointments where we've had a resident send in that they booked an appointment from their fridge, which is, I guess if you have that time. But that's that top layer, but the channel access is the layers, the presentation layers that we're using to integrate with the different resident choice media that they're using, whether it's a mobile app that we'll release, whether it's a web app, or so on. So this is a little bit of how we're tackling our problem and how we're moving forward. And I think the guidance here and the overall conclusion that I'm trying to draw is that there are many technologies out there that certainly you can all use. And I will tell you, we are looking at AI. So for example, when I talk to you about that knowledge base, knowledge bases are great, but they still, like Google, bring up multiple options to read through. So when a caseworker is on the phone and they're trying to solve a problem and they're using a knowledge base, they're going through potentially 3-4 articles. What we are doing as part of this is saying, well, look, AI is just a little too much for us right now. Certainly to release publicly we all know the risk there, right? We're pretty hesitant. I think some of the smaller municipalities have done great work in doing that, but in larger municipalities, it's a little bit harder. But internally, we could take that knowledge base and convert that into, say, a ChatGPT-like or a Gen AI-like solution. So that is what we're looking to do, to be able to incorporate some of those technologies. Now, the final word I'll leave you on is, if done right, if done in such a way like this, where you break it down by component, you really decouple the different things that you're trying to solve with technology, then scalability into the future to incorporate those IoT devices, the Gen AI, becomes a lot more feasible than if you just slam a solution in to fix a problem that you haven't really thought through, right? So I'll leave it on that. I hope that covers the topic. And
I think it absolutely covered the topic. Maybe we want to actually first give Marco a hand.
thank you.
And I think what we also want to do is open up, are there any questions at all for Marco? No, not yet? Oh, one question, right here, thank you. Mike's coming, he's running, he's coming, he's almost there. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
When you talked about how the CRM or that layer pushed down to the legacy systems, something that we've been hearing is that sometimes, when you're introducing a CRM or something like that, it's just ultimately too complex, and it can actually help to replace some of those legacy systems, and they may actually not be needed. Have you run into any issues or insights into sort of dealing with that bottom layer, and since they're so costly to maintain over time, and they're kind of this millstone in general on the whole operation, has there been any movement towards replacing them with something more modern, and where do you sort of see that going?
For sure. I think any opportunity, so I will say we've already done a massive replacement in our 311, so as a part of that, which has a lot of downstream systems whenever we're getting tickets coming in. We actually kept all those legacy systems, and the reason being is not that our CM didn't have the capability, but, and okay, I'll say it, Toronto's special.
Toronto's is special.
Our business clients are so big and there's so many varying things that to try and bake in all the customizations that go into those legacy systems into CRMs, and I know CRMs will always tell, all our vendors will tell us, we got you, we could do that, but it doesn't really work. You need time, and it's not that they don't have you, but to do it quickly is something that I've found doesn't work. There are, a lot of CRMs do offer a way to an integration layer. Salesforce has MuleSoft, and those are expensive, I get it. But I think what you'll find is put in that first layer, put in your CRM, get it done, get it stable, and to the point that I was making, it will scale. So we are now replacing some of those legacy systems, but our first approach was go with the CRM first, and put the scope as what this is going to do. This is going to manage the customer record. It's going to manage the interactions. Everything else is going to flow to the subsystems to manage, say, work orders, as an example, right? And that's the easiest one for me, is to say, okay, we didn't pick up your garbage. We're going to send it back to our paradigm system, right? And then solid waste will manage from there. Because there's another element to this that you have to consider. It's not just about replacing the technology. It's change management. And I don't know about you, but we have a lot of varying technical skill sets in our space. And so it's very smart to think about that it's not just about, oh, great, you're going to change it, but then you may disrupt the business because then they've got to bring everybody in to be trained at the same time. Now, not only are you changing your people managing the CRM, but then also their legacy systems as well, that they have to now learn what the new one is and what gaps and so on. So that's my recommended approach. I've seen success in it. The problem is when you go big, that's when you wait for perfect and nothing gets delivered, right? Or it takes a extreme amount of time and a lot of money.
Thank you, Marco, for giving us a peek behind the curtain about how you're actually getting it done.
Thank you.
Marco Palermo, City of Toronto.
Thank you.
So we are moving into a fireside chat before we head on to lunch.
Thank you.
I just want to do a check. Just from numbers, I feel like Track 2's in the house. Are they?
Yeah.
Yeah? Well, if they're not, they're going to miss the beginning of this great conversation.